All right, if you're anything like me, you hate running out of food on a trip. It's like a big fear, and so I'm a big fan of snacks during an adventure, and one of my absolute favorite go-to snacks are wonderful pistachios. You may be familiar with pistachios and the brand Wonderful Pistachios, but if you're not, they are one of the highest protein nuts out there. 1 ounce serving of Wonderful Pistachios is 6 grams of protein. That's 10% of your daily value. It also includes 9 essential amino acids, and they come with a ton of different flavors, varieties. There's a spicy version, there's lightly salted, there's no salted, there's so many, and every time I go on an adventure, I'm not even lying, I take an entire bag with me. And what's cool too, I love having the Wonderful Pistachio in shell, because then that almost gives me something to do and focus on as I'm paddling or biking through the really monotonous parts of the adventure. Every great adventure is going to have plenty of boring moments, and it's nice to have something to do and also something that is giving you some fuel, like Wonderful Pistachios. So they're one of my favorite adventure snacks, favorite road trip snacks, and definitely leave me feeling better than a lot of other snacks you can turn to. So if you want to learn more about how to fuel your next adventure with Wonderful Pistachios, go to wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. I love a good deal as much as the next person, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be relatively easy, no hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called BS on them. Well, turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. It is super easy to switch your wireless carrier to Mint Mobile. They got a great website, easy to purchase, get your phone activated. If you're looking to work with Mint Mobile, go to mintmobile.com/ASP. And you'll see how to sign up for one of their 3-month plans that are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months on premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/ASP. That's mintmobile.com/ASP. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower at 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional tax, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. We know that a lot of y'all travel all over the world, and you still need to be able to use your phone. And have you ever traveled and gotten back home and had a huge roaming bill after your trip abroad, or lost phone service or connectivity while traveling, or had to wait on Wi-Fi? I remember on one of my first trips on my own, I had used my phone as normal. It was working, and my parents, I was very young, my parents received a very large phone bill, which I had to pay. And I learned my lesson then. So if you're looking for an easy way to continue your phone service while traveling abroad and avoid those huge roaming bills, for eSIM cards, which are digital SIM cards, you don't have to wait somewhere to get a SIM card. These are ready to go and trusted by over 10 million world travelers. Then you need to try Airalo, the first and leading eSIM store on the market. No waste, it's 100% digital, no physical SIM cards to deal with. And it's been created to save time and money, and has over 200 countries and regions covered, so you can connect to each local network that you're going. It's very easy to use, and there's an app for easy monitoring, how-tos, as well as track your data usage. So if you've got some upcoming travel and you want to be able to use your phone without any issues, no huge roaming bills like I got on my first trip abroad, install Airalo today, and you can stay connected wherever you travel, and use my code ASP to get $3 off your first eSIM. Again, that's get the Airalo app, AIRALO, and use the code ASP to get $3 off your first eSIM. Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. Today's episode, I'm going to have to apologize again. I'm running a little late this week. We had a newborn, or we had our third son, recently, and thankfully everything went well, happy, healthy, but I am much busier than I anticipated. And I'm like, I'm going to get, decent paternity leave. And, I got the other 2 kids. They're going to be going back to school. We're going to be fine. No, I'm busier now than I've ever been. I don't know how I fit a job in between here before this. And so, the show has unfortunately had to be put on the back burner as, just things pop up and I have, more immediate family-oriented things to take care of. So thank you for your patience. I am slowly getting back on track. And in a big way, this episode with Glen Van Peski is a great, I know it's late, but it's absolutely worth the wait. This episode is one that I anticipate is going to stick with me for quite a while. One, because Glen was such a great storyteller and so generous with his time. I really got a lot out of this conversation. But 2, this book, Take Less, Do More, which is the title of this episode, is amazing. And you might think the title of this episode is a typo. Why is Take Less, Do More in lowercase, and why is there a period right in the middle? Well, that is stylized after the title of the book, and that's all intentional as well. And you might be able to come to the conclusion that what Glen is talking about is his love of ultralight backpacking. So what he learned over time, which we'll talk about, is that the less you take on an adventure, especially when you're carrying it on your back, the more you can do, the farther you can go, the more help you can provide others. There's all sorts of benefits to taking less on an adventure. And so what I love about this story and this podcast episode in conversation and book is it captures all that we love to talk about here on the show, which is, someone who loves their adventure sport, but also takes those lessons and applies it to life. Because most of us, there are a few exceptions to this rule, but the vast majority of us and our guests have been, we don't live in a perpetual state of adventure. Our adventures are really the exception to our normal lives. Even myself, that my adventures make up, I don't even know, a fraction of a percent of my entire life. However, they are so impactful and stand out because they are the exception of that time, this time I've spent on Earth. And you learn so much during that exception. So Glen has taken all those lessons, nearly 5 decades of those lessons of ultralight backpacking and starting the company called Gossamer Gear, which you might be familiar with, and put it all in this book and how it applies to life. And it is beautifully written, amazing stories. I really enjoyed the book. And what we're going to do is a giveaway of Take Less, Do More. And what you need to do, all you need to do is in the next 48 hours, email me or message me on Instagram, Facebook, text, call me if you want. You need to email me or you message me in some way. I want to take less to do more. And if you do that in the next 48 hours, you'll be entered to win a copy of Take Less, Do More. I've already gifted like 3 copies of this book to people. I actually got a phone call from a friend today who called me to tell me how much this book meant to them. So, I know a lot of our guests don't get that kind of endorsement, but it really was a powerful story. I really enjoyed it. And we've had so many great authors on lately. I'm so thankful for all the wonderful people who've been on. And Glen is just continuing that story of just wonderful authors coming to talk about what they've written about and giving us some really exciting stories. So I wish I would have read the book before interviewing him. I didn't have time to. I try to do that when I have a guest who's an author, but I was not able to. And that's okay but the questions are coming from the perspective of probably where you are right now. So hopefully this piques your interest and curiosity to check it out and learn more about Glen's story. There's a lot we didn't get to that's pretty astonishing. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive in. Welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We are now going to welcome Glen to the episode. You heard a little bit about him in the intro. Glen Van Peski, welcome to Adventure Sports. How you doing?
Good. Thanks, Mason. Appreciate you having me on your podcast.
Oh, absolutely. No, this is a treat. I'm super excited to talk. I love to talk to people who have the adventure chops, but also the industry knowledge and also the perspective to apply it to life. You're really hitting kind of like the three things I love talking about. So it's going to be a fun conversation.
Well, I don't know about the adventure chops. I mean, I was looking at some of your other guests, like, 8 years riding around the world on a motorcycle or riding across the country with no money and no food, summiting 8,000-meter peaks in winter. I mean, just crazy stuff. My life seems ordinary because it's my life. And I guess it's all relative. And I know a lot of people, kind of like your other guests, who have done amazing, crazy things in the outdoors. So it's all relative.
You've got the chops. Don't doubt that one bit. You've got the chops. And so where are you coming from today?
I am at my home in Bend, Oregon. Yeah, if you like the outdoors, this is pretty much heaven on earth. I mean, it's amazing.
A lot, yeah, like you said, a lot of variety of what you can do too.
We have a saying here, it was a 2 for a day or a 3 for a day, so you can go running, get on your mountain bike, and then go skiing or then go kayaking, so depending on how many activities you cram into one day, yeah, it can be a 2 for a 3 for a day. We're going river rafting this afternoon, so that'll be fun.
Oh my gosh! So yeah, podcasting doesn't count on that twofer, so it'll be a one for day.
It'll be a 1 for, yeah.
This is not quite an adventure. We talk a lot about adventure, but we don't. That's the one downside of hosting too. You end up talking a lot of adventure. Don't get out there a lot, and I'm sure running a backpacking company, it's the same problem. You are on. Well, when you are trying to assist other people to get out there, so there's probably a lot of times that you wish you were on the other side of the transaction a lot of times.
Well, that's a classic story. Someone, hikes a couple long trails, they get into hiking, they get into making their own gear, they start a company, and then pretty soon they realize actually all they're doing is running a company. They're not actually hiking anymore, which is why they get into it. Now, I'm lucky with Gossamer Gear because I'm not involved in the day-to-day running and building the business. So, nobody, you definitely don't want me answering customer service calls because I don't have the patience or the politeness for that. But so I get to tinker with new designs and, some of those become products and some don't. But yeah, it doesn't involve the day-to-day. Now, the book has been one of those things that has consumed a huge amount of time, kind of the 2 years to write it. And now, the podcasts and, speaking events and stuff like that means I'm getting out less than I would like to, for sure.
Interesting. Through this, and it wasn't through Gossamer as much. So, I've heard you speak. As I was doing research, I saw that you speak a lot. I saw you on a lot of podcasts. Great communicator. Why did you want to write a book? Were there things you just can't get across or can't get into as deeply through just presentations and whatnot? Why book and why now?
Well, actually, I didn't want to write a book. My friend John Mackey, co-founder of Whole Foods Market, who was also my business partner in Gossamer Gear, which that's a long story too. He's a huge hiker and he likes to hike with friends. So he'll do, I don't know, a lot of trips every year. And some are, some European kind of hut hiking when you're staying at huts and hotels. And then, but he's also, I think probably his preference maybe is, banging out miles on the Appalachian Trail, long days, sleeping in tents. And so I've been blessed to do a fair amount of hiking with John. And about 10 years ago, we started saying, hey, we're walking along AT or PCT or something and talking about gear because he's a big gear guy. And he said, Glenn, you should write a book. I'll write the foreword. And so I told him then, it's like, there's plenty of great ultralight backpacking books out there. I really don't think I need to add my 2 cents to the mix. But he's very persistent. And, year after year after year, he kept bugging me. And finally I decided, that was a pretty good offer to have someone of his caliber write the foreword. So I figured I should write a book. So finally got around to it.
Now, what's interesting is you didn't think you should crowd this space, but did you have that same thought when starting Gossamer Gear? I mean, I know it was early on, and so there maybe was less available, but that's I think all creators, all creative people, everybody inventing something or coming up with something new is like, is there really room for me here? There's always going to be an argument one way or the other. Did you think about Gossamer differently than the book?
Well, yeah, because Gossamer, I mean, in some ways the same, some ways differently. So with Gossamer, it started GVP Gear because, I mean, I just figured I would get 25 packs made and that would be the end of that. I'd go back to my engineering. Everyone who wanted one would have one. So as we know, it didn't turn out that way. But I mean, when I was getting into it, I wasn't thinking like I am starting a gear company. I was like, I'm getting 25 packs made. I'll ship them out. That'll be the end of that. So that was my thought process there. Now, ironically, I kind of something that's similar between the two is I never took a salary from Gossamer Gear because, well, one, when you're only making 25 packs, why bother? It's like, it doesn't matter what you charge. You make $2 a pack or $10 a pack. It's not going to make a difference if you're selling 25 packs. So I didn't bother and never did take a salary. And so it gave me a freedom. Like, I don't really care if people bought the pack or not, because it wasn't making me any money personally. And same with the book, I'm donating all the proceeds to the Pacific Crest Trail Association. So, whether it sells or not, I don't make any money from it. I mean, obviously the PCTA gets a donation if the book does well, but I'm the kind of guy, I think most people, if you're going to do something, you want to do it well. You want to put a solid effort into it. And so that's why I'm, appearing on podcasts and speaking and promoting the book. I figure I'm only going to do it once. Of course, that's what I said when I sewed my first pack too. But I'm still holding to that. I'm only yeah, I'm only going to do it once. So it's like, might as well, you get one chance to do it as best you can. So
you never got paid with Gossamer Gear?
I've never taken a salary from Gossamer Gear. No.
Wow, that is interesting because you've had your own career on the side. Now, I obviously find that surprising. I'm sure other people do too. I think there is a lot of people who have this goal to make a career and make a living wage from this love of the outdoors. You didn't do that. You probably had the chance to, or the ability to at least try to. Why would you say that's not a good idea?
Well, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I think at least that keeping the side gig a side gig is a viable option. And if I was single, I might have made a different decision. If I was married, I got a mortgage, I got 3 kids put through college, maybe I wanted to pursue the gear business, but all the benefits that we got out of that, the personal satisfaction, the creativity and stuff, none of those accrued to my family. And also my engineering career, I like being an engineer. It was fun, it was engaging. So it wasn't like I was choosing between a job that sucked and one that was exciting. I mean, I enjoyed the engineering. It was a great career. Enjoyed doing that. But one thing about not taking any money out of the gear business is it gives you the freedom to do what you want. I didn't have to care what people thought about my gear, what they thought I should make in terms of gear. I mean, I'd had people call up in the early days and go, well, you ought to do a pack like this. And I'd say, well, make your own pack. I mean, I make stuff that I want. And if that's something you want, well, great, you can buy it. And if it's not what you want, then don't buy it. I don't care. And once it became a real company, we got people now that we got a 401k, we got health plans. I mean, so we have to pay attention, and you can see that in our product offerings. It's more mainstream. We want to meet people where they are and give them a light way, and then continue to allow them to lighten up as far as they want to go on that. But the downside of keeping the side gig is there comes kind of an inflection point. And for me, that's when I was going to close the company down. I was working 60 hours a week plus doing my engineering, and another 30 hours a week doing the gear business, getting paid well for the engineering, getting not paid at all for the gear business. So, the 90 hours a week wasn't sustainable, and it was pretty obvious which one had to go. It was the gear business. So, that would have been, I wasn't ready. I didn't think the gear business could provide the lifestyle for my family that the engineering business was at that point. And maybe it could have, maybe it couldn't have. So the easy thing was to kill the gear business, but through circumstances, John Mackey ended up investing and hiring someone to run it. And so that's, other than that, it would have been just another gear company by the wayside.
How do you feel about that decision now?
Well, now, so I still own 25% of the company. That was the deal with Mackey. I'm still involved, board management, design, things like that. And, now that the company's doing millions in sales, is like, well, maybe that would be cool if I owned 100% of it. But like I said, I mean, I like the engineering, met a lot of cool people. So in my mind, I kind of had the best of both worlds. I had all the relationships from the gear company, and I had the stability, the money, the pension, the health plan and insurance and all that from my engineering career. My family did suffer a little along the way because that's the other
30 hours a
downside of,
week that was put towards something like that.
yeah, doing two jobs, something falls short, and it's usually the family takes the short end of the thrift on that.
I know we're diving into this probably deeper than we thought we would, but this is such an interesting this inflection point and such an interesting point of view, because I feel like a lot of the classic story is, I ran this on the side. I got it to a point where I could jump ship. It was a big risk, very scary. And now I run this company. And that's what a lot of people think they want until maybe it's right there in front of them. And it's a little more complicated, a little more nuanced than that. I've been in that position where it's like, I don't know if I want to do my passion full time, even though I probably could. How is that going to change my relationship with my passion? How is that going to change the lifestyle of my family? So yeah, it sounds like you want to say something.
Yeah, when you said, how's that going to change the relationship with my passion? And that's the thing I think that some people miss. It was tough in some respects for me because my engineering business wasn't like I was going to work. It depends on the parts, but at that point I had my own engineering company. So, I had that entrepreneurial, it scratched that entrepreneurial itch, but to some extent it didn't have quite the stability of, I'm going to work for a company 40 hours a week, getting all that stuff.
You still had to go make it happen with that.
I still had to go make it happen. Yeah. But, I think keeping the gear business, keeping the passion a side thing that you don't count on for any money allows it to be a passion. And I suspect that if you talk to a lot of people that made that jump and then the side gig, the passion becomes the main thing, that, you start to have to make compromises. It's like, well, I want to do this, but, I don't know, maybe I don't want to have advertisements, but I got to eat. So I got to have advertisements. Or, you make decisions that aren't necessarily based on your passion anymore. They're based on, oh, I got to support the family on this gig now. Yeah.
It's quality. A lot of things can suffer. And
yeah, so it may change to something other than you were originally passionate about.
Interesting. Well, how did you, without the incentive of money, which, we're humans, everyone eventually does, even out of the goodness of your heart, you eventually need some sort of some sort of payment, or I won't say money, and some sort of currency, whether that be the satisfaction, that can be a currency of reviews coming in and how impactful these adventures were for people that used your gear. Maybe that was what kept you going. But how do you sustain the creative sharpness and the ability or the desire to innovate when you don't have that incentive all the time? What was your incentive?
Well, fundamentally now I create because it's something I want. Like our latest tent, the Whisper 10-ounce tent, I created because I was going to ride 1,000 miles on the Great Divide mountain bike route, and I knew it was going to be buggy. So my 2.7-ounce tarp was not going to cut it. And yeah, I could have done Tylenol PM, earplugs, and head net, but it's like, if it's really buggy, that's a poor solution. So, I started working on this tent that used a prototype on that trip, and it ultimately developed into the Whisper tent that we sell today. So fundamentally, I fool around with things that I'm interested in. Another one was I got this part-time dishwashing job, and trying to wash the pastry tubes in the dishwasher didn't work. They flop all around. They don't get clean. So I got some brass rod and built this little thing that you could put the bag on, the pastry bag, and then would clip into the tray and it would clean it. So you can run through the dishwasher. So, fundamentally I make things that either I'm interested in or, a good friend of mine is interested in.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. At Lives In, it's all about making fewer, better things. It's about owning less so you can live more. It's about adventure, finding joy in the day-to-day, and living a well-worn life. And your clothing should support that journey. That's why Lives In has combined Technical features, durable construction, and modern styling into functional, versatile outdoor clothing so you can take on everything that the day brings without ever having to change your pants. Go out for coffee in the morning, head to the office for the day, finish the evening off with a post-work cragging session, all in the same outfit. When you buy Livzen, you buy for life. You can get 10% off being a loyal listener to Adventure Sports Podcast with the code ASP10 at livzen.com. That's LIVSN.com. I'm personally a huge fan of the Flex Canvas overalls. I haven't had a great pair of overalls in a while, and I'm actually really surprised by how functional and just useful these are for my day-to-day. I like having that extra almost protection on my chest and around my belt, and I've been doing a lot of house projects lately, and this is just like almost my suit of armor I can put on. Really cool stuff, so I've become a big fan. Gets me in that like workshop mode, and I'm not afraid to wear overalls around town. So again, get 10% off by going to livzen.com, LIVSN.com, and use the code ASP10 at checkout. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. So your incentive is solving your own problems. And then you say, surely there's a community out there that needs this solution as well. So that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I don't make that assumption. Anytime I come up with a product and we get together the product development team at Gossamer Gear, the first question is, okay, here's the product that Glenn came up with. Are there 5 other people besides Glenn who think this is a good idea? And sometimes the answer is no, probably not. and you don't see those products.
Yeah, right.
With the Whisper, it was a maybe.
The crotch pod got through. Okay.
Crotch pod got through. Yeah, that was a special case probably, yeah.
They were like, guys, he's really passionate about this. I think we need to get somebody on board with this. No, just
yeah, and it's a low cost. It's like, what's the risk too? It's like, okay, if you're going to order, 500 tents out of DCF, that's a whole different thing than a couple of Tyvek crotch pods.
There you go. I love it. So a lot of what you're talking about, a lot of what I saw the conversations revolved around was just lightening gear, getting things lighter. Tell us, when you started thinking this way, what was the state of gear? What was the state of the outdoor backpacking world, adventure world, and why was this such a big reason for you to start doing what you do?
Well, it started, I don't know about the whole general state of things, but I know my personal state of things. So when I was a kid, I was in Boy Scouts and I had a old Kelty, forest green external frame pack, which I thought was pretty cool. But when I graduated high school, I rode my bicycle from Western Massachusetts to California, and I didn't have the pack with me. I ended up getting a job out here and staying. So fast forward, when our oldest son, Brian, joined Boy Scouts, it's like, okay, we need gear, because it was a big camping, backpacking troop. So I go down to the local REI and say, hey, we're going to be trekking for a week in the Sierras. What do we need? And they showed me like this latest thing, these internal frame packs. They move with you. And, didn't, from my engineer's mind, it's like, this is, sounds more like marketing than actual technical stuff here, but it was what they had. So I bought it. And that pack weighed 7.5 pounds empty. Which I just kind of shrugged. My load leaving the trailhead for that week trip was over 70 pounds.
Oh my Lord. That's your kid probably weighed that much.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the problem was, these kids, especially when they joined Scouts, tend to be on the small side, and trying to load them up with that much gear was just crazy. And about this time, my buddy, Reed Miller, read Ray Jardine's original book, The Pacific Crest Trail Hiker's Handbook. He gave it to me, Glenn, we got to, check this out. We got to do something about lightening our loads. I remember looking at the appendix in the back. Ray Jardine had his gear list. It was like 8 pounds and change, base pack weight without food and water. And I remember Reed and I just looking at that going, that's insane. All the homemade stuff. It's like trying to wrap our heads around that. And then fast forward to today, I couldn't tell you when my base pack weight was that heavy. It's been, I have the advantage of materials and stuff that Ray didn't have, and, 20 years experience. but yeah, it was the scouts. And when we decided we need to start lightening our load, I looked at that 7.5 pound pack and thought, well, this is probably a good place to start. This thing's like an anchor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I sewed a pack and we were off.
Well, tell us too, what was the mindset of adventurers or backpacking then with what you needed to bring? I'm sure a combination of the weight was not only just the gear was heavy, but also unnecessary things. I know with the we talk about all adventure sports on this show. A very big bucket of that is backpacking. Another one's bikepacking, ultra running, skiing. Like there's some major ones. Backpacking's one. So a lot of our listeners are going to be, a little more familiar with that sport than some of the other ones. What were some of the just almost necessary essentials that you were like, no, we do not need an entire axe or whatever it is, a journal? Like what were some of those things that were almost commonplace then that could easily be cut out?
Well, that was another advantage is being on the West Coast, the long trail is the Pacific Crest Trail. And, as opposed to, say, the Appalachian Trail, there are, it's more wilderness, there's less resupplies. So there tends to be a greater emphasis, I think, on the PCT of really honing your gear down. On the AT, maybe you can carry a hatchet because, you're going through town every couple of days or something. Not on the PCT. I mean, you have to do long miles to get between resupplies with any kind of reasonable supply of food that you can carry. So I think that helps that mindset. We did have some experiences with the scouts. I remember one early kind of shakedown hike we did. And so we're kind of, the adult leaders are working with the scouts, going through their gear and shaking it down. And we said, okay, finally we're ready to go. And this little kid, he's got his pack on and it's a lot lighter now. And he's ready to start hiking. He's holding a big garbage bag full of stuff. And we go, wait, what's the garbage bag? He says, well, that's all my stuff that wouldn't fit in the pack. We're like, okay, we're not ready to go. Clear the picnic table, pull everything out again and go through. It's like, no, that goes in the truck. You're not taking that with you. But I would say, back then, I don't know. Today, I find like food is a thing that people often miss. Food tends to be heavy and no one likes to be hungry. So people tend to take too much because they don't know how much they eat. And for me, an air mattress to me makes no sense if you know how to get by without it.
Well, tell us one of those tricks, because my first ever bikepacking experience, me and my friend were in college, and I'll tell you quickly because it has to deal with an air mattress, and we have no clue what we're doing. Literally no clue. We don't know how to change a flat tire. We're going from Fairbanks to Florida to our house in Florida. And,
oh my gosh!
And we're in college. We played basketball together in Central Florida, and we're like, dude, let's do something crazy this summer. And so we leave, and I had a $20 Swiss Sport, Amazon sleeping bag. And I'm like, I don't need an air mattress. Like, that's for comfort. I don't need that. And I immediately, the first night, I laid on that cold, frozen Alaska ground in early May, which we didn't realize how cold it would be. And I just about froze my butt off. And I used my Camelback that I was carrying as my pillow, which have busted or just leaked all night underneath me, froze. And then I learned quickly that part of that air mattress is also heat retention. So I don't know, So what are some tricks if you don't need one on a cold night? Like what do you do? Because I've been kind of obsessed about it ever since.
So, and I can see that, but I like the way you approached it going in. It's like, nah, that's just comfort. I don't need that. Yeah, we've had my buddy Reed Miller and I, the scoutmaster from that troop, had endless discussions about it. Was this a comfort item or is this a necessity? And so I have limited experience with air mattresses, but in my experience, they're not that great at thermal retention, unless you get one. I mean, the old Thermarest had like foam, or if it's one of the ones that has some synthetic insulation in there, otherwise it's just you're sleeping on cold air typically, and complete on the sides. But so I have probably 1/4 inch now, just foam torso pad. And now this is my crazy theory, but it's super interesting to get people out on a trip and actually have them try this and watch their eyes get big. So what makes you uncomfortable? If you lie down on your living room floor right now, what makes you uncomfortable isn't really that the floor is hard. It's that the floor is flat and your back is not flat. It's got a curve to it. You've got the small of your back and then it comes out around your butt.
And I've got a big butt, so it really does hurt to lay flat on the ground.
Exactly. And what hurts is not, your tailbone on the hard surface is one thing, but your back hurts because it's unsupported. And so one way to do that is an air mattress that kind of evens that out, allows your butt to go lower, fills in your back. But another way to do that is to contour the ground to match your body. And that weighs nothing. And so, I was doing a kind of clinic for women who explore here recently. And I was describing this and you could see the skeptical face like, yeah, no, I'm not buying that. We'll just try it here, And so we were on some Duff, just scooped it out, kind of got it right. And watching them lay down and their eyes just go, oh, that's amazing.
Would you just move earth? Like just move dirt? Or
yeah,
what'd you
just
have?
move dirt or Duff or whatever you got. You can get, if you're camping on granite, which for obvious reasons I try to avoid, like something hard surface that you can't modify, you can get close. I'll wad up some clothing and throw it in my sleeping bag so I can take my rain jacket or something I'm not using. You make a wad out of that. And then when you're in your sleeping bag, just reach back and put it at the small of your back to even out that pressure. But it's better if you can contour it.
I end up just laying on my side, to try to alleviate that pain and then switching.
Yeah. And the problem is when you lie on your side, most of us, and again, human geometry has wide variation, but there's some similarities. You get a pressure point probably on your hip because now that's on the surface, and above your hip, your waist is probably slightly unsupported, which just increases the pressure on your hip. So if you contour it so that your hip is kind of cradled, it spreads out the surface over a larger area. And then you can also, I have a foam donut, just like a little piece of blue foam that I throw in my sleeping bag because, most of the pressure's on a specific point. If it's on the back, it's on your tailbone. If you're on a side, and I flip all day, all night rather, it's on your hip bone. So with a little piece of foam, you can put that under your hip bone and you're getting like double the foam, but you don't have to carry double the pad. You just carry a little piece for the main pressure area. Now that's more trouble than most people want to go to save a pound. That's pretty high in the fuss factor for most people. So that's why most people carry more weight than I do.
Yeah. And after all these years, you're still passionate about saving the weight and finding innovative ways to use things more so. Well, let's talk about the book and the title and the philosophy, take less, do more. When did you start to either start saying that or start realizing that? When did that become kind of this slogan?
That's kind of lost in the mist of time. I don't know. We've had these discussions at Gossamer Gear, like who came up with take less, do more? It is a registered trademark of Gossamer Gear used with permission for the book. And I don't know. I don't remember. It just emerged.
When did you realize that philosophy was true? I mean, it's like, okay, actually it's not taking more equals you can go farther and do more. Like if I bring everything I might possibly need for an entire year out there, well, then I can go for that long. You were doing the opposite. Well, actually the less I bring, the farther I can go, the more I can do, the more I can explore. Was there an experience or a time or just sometime that hit?
Yeah, Ray Jardine talks about that in his first book, how because there's like set points that you can resupply along the Pacific Crest Trail. And he talks about like the virtuous cycle or the vicious cycle. If you can only do, if it's 100 miles between resupply points and you can only do so many miles a day, well, then you need so many more days of food. That means your pack is heavier. That means you can't do as many miles per day, which means you need more food. It just keeps compounding.
It's kind of like that formula that NASA and now SpaceX uses to launch a kilometer into space. How much fuel do you need? Well, for that fuel, or not a kilometer, for a kilogram, you need the fuel to push that, but also fuel for that fuel, and then fuel for that fuel, and it's compounding. And so every
Exactly.
kilogram that has to go into space is this certain amount of fuel, calculating all that compounding need to get it up. So the more it's just exponential.
Right. So if if you could make fuel weigh half as much, or you needed less fuel, obviously all the fuel to get there becomes less. And, in the case of backpacking, if you're carrying less weight, you can do more miles. And if you do more miles, then there's less days between resupply, which means you need less food, which is less weight, which means you can do more miles. So it's kind of that's the virtuous cycle, where the less you take, the more you can do.
When have you taken that to an extreme where it was not true? Let's say pushing the limits of ultralight, where it's like, oh, actually, I kind of did need that.
Yeah, this is something Andrew Skirka calls stupid light, like venturing like beyond. There's lightweight ultralight, extreme ultralight, and then beyond extreme ultralight, there's stupid ultralight, stupid light. And I've certainly had some experiences. The one that comes to mind is I had this plan with my buddy Reed to do a hike with a sub 2-pound base pack weight. And our plan was, and this is a special case. I don't think I have that one. I have the sub 3-pound which was the actual trip I did, on my website. But so our plan was, okay, we'll do a desert section. So right away, you don't need rain gear. You don't need a shelter. We figured we'd hike at night and sleep during the day. So you don't need a sleeping bag, and you don't need insulation, because you're going to be hiking at night when normally it would be cooler, at least not going to be super cold. So it really allows you to get the weight down at, basically kind of almost nothing. But Reed couldn't go at the last minute. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do this by myself. I'm going to hedge the bets a little bit. Ended up with just under 3 pounds base pack weight. I put my sleeping bag back in. And it was a good thing I did, because to save weight, I didn't take a drinking tube, hydration bladder and a drinking tube, because of the weight. It doesn't seem like it's heavy, but if you actually look at it and you're counting grams, the tube itself is pretty heavy. So I built this little sil nylon sleeve that I could carry the hydration bladder directly around my waist to keep the weight low. It made sense totally on a spreadsheet. But the problem was to drink, then I had to unbuckle this thing. I had to, take, and it was kind of tight. I had to take the hydration tube out, or the bladder container out, open it, drink. And by now the water's pretty warm, because it's like right around my waist. It's not insulated by anything. So I didn't drink as much as I would have if I'd had a tube right by my mouth. And as a result, I had heat exhaustion. I'm, shivering, had to climb into my sleeping bag in 90-degree temperatures until I could stabilize. So yeah, that was a little too much. So since then, I've always included the weight of the drinking tube, because I just know, for me, it's like, I need that so I don't get into trouble.
Absolutely. But you were like, hey, this hot water actually could cook something. Huh? What am I? Yeah. Let me think about this a little bit more. That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. So when did it start? Because I know one of the things we talk about a lot with people who do really long adventures, and we've had people. I love talking to people that go on journeys. And what's cool about your story is this entire entrepreneurial journey. Well, it's a journey. And it's been over a long period of time, and you've learned a lot. And so when anybody goes and does a trip, we recently talked to, I think it was Madison Blagden, that did the entire Eastern Continental Trail for like a year, like 8,000 miles or something. And from New Brunswick down to the Florida Keys. And it's like, she was like 2 weeks off the trail. I was like, what do you think is going to be just totally different about you now? How do you maintain the lessons you've learned through this experience? A lot of times one of those lessons is you just don't need that much. How do you maintain that in just normal life? And so for you, as you're building this company where you're focused on this principle, when did it, or how quickly, and how much do you iterate that into your personal life and kind of just constantly keep that feedback loop going what I'm asking is, when did take less, do more start applying to your other parts of your life?
Yeah, and I would say the first instance was similar to your other guest, where particularly with ultralight backpacking, I typically, if I'm going out for a 4-day trip, I'm probably leaving the trailhead with fully loaded pack of 12, 13 pounds, with food and water. At a 5-pound base pack weight, it's a good reminder of how little you need to really be safe and comfortable and have a good time. And it resets your expectations. I mean, we expect fast internet and reliable power and cell service and, all these things that if one of those goes away, it's like, oh, come on, it's like, my life sucks now because this isn't right, but when you get back from sleeping on the ground for a week or a month or a year, I mean, beds are like a miracle. Memory foam is like space age magic. Potable water out of 5 different faucets out of your house. Like, you're never far away from potable water, pretty much at any temperature you want. I mean, that's like amazing. We get used to it. So much of life is like that. We get used to it. It's just the water we swim in.
How did you see this idea of take less, do more applying to maybe your day job or your career or raising a family? Were you seeing that happen? Because I imagine it would.
Well, and I don't know how much of it was take less, do more, and how much was just being born an engineer. I think engineers think differently than other people. And I meet people, and I can always tell, it's like, I see you. You're like an engineer. I don't care what you get paid to do or what your actual job is, but like, and I know how you think. It's like we're always looking for the most efficient way to do things. And so some of that applies like in like a relationship lesson. Something I talk about in the book is, one is handwritten notes, which is just a huge, I think, thing that everyone should do. And I've seen tremendous benefits from it. But things that I do with my wife, Francie and I were married to 42 years last month. When I'm in a card store, I will get a bunch of cards, and then I have a stack of them here. So, when I feel like writing a card, a love note or something, and slipping it somewhere, I can do it. I don't have to, like, you might have the thought, and it's like, I don't have time to go to the store. I don't have a card, I mean, yeah, you can write on a Post-it, and that's probably better than nothing. But, I like to batch it. So I have these cool cards that I can use when I need to. And I know for sure we were married on the June 26th, but we celebrate every 26th of every month.
Really?
Yeah.
Even now?
Even now. Yeah.
What does celebrating on the 26th look like?
It can be a variety of things. When we were working, sometimes I would sneak to Francie's work and tie some balloons on her car and leave a note on them, or I'd have flowers delivered to her work. Now, I mean, it could be a date. We plan something special. It could be as simple as a card that she stumbles upon saying happy anniversary date night. We call it ADN, just to celebrate the 26th of every month.
That's amazing. I'm sure that has done wonders for the marriage.
And I have to think ahead, because if we're going to be like in our adventure van or we're going to be in Europe or something, I have to make sure when I leave, I have those cards hidden away so I can get her one for anniversary date night if there's going to be a 26th somewhere while we're gone. So it takes a little bit of planning.
So does that mean the anniversaries just it has to be like you got to blow it out of the water because every month there's something? Or is there less pressure to do something big?
Exactly. There's less pressure to do something big because you've been celebrating it every month. So we did this year for 42 years. What did we do? We did a really nice dinner, and I did a really extravagant flowers. I went into the flower stores. I want something for my wife, in a couple of days, 42 years. And I'm kind of drawn to this one. She says, "Oh yeah, we call that our showstopper." I was like, yeah, that's my wife's a showstopper. So that's the flowers she needs. So it was ungodly expensive, but it was worth it. But sometimes, the actual anniversary is pretty simple affair.
It's going to be happening again in another 30 days, 31 days.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
I love that. I've never heard of that. That's I'm going to apply that. I'm coming up on 10 years of marriage
Congratulations.
in a couple months. And yeah, I'm sure I could learn a lot from you.
Well, and it's just a reminder. I mean, the way I look at it, the chances of an engineer, bald engineer like me, well, I wasn't bald when I met her, but
Still some on
of
the side.
meeting an amazing woman like her and somehow talking her into marrying me and somehow not doing too much to make her change her mind on that over the last 42 years, that's too big a deal to only celebrate once a year. So that's my mindset of like every month is like, oh my gosh, this is amazing that I'm married to an amazing woman.
Is she behind the camera right now or something? Like she's standing on the other side
No,
of the lab? Okay,
no,
is
no,
she
no,
pointing
no,
something at you?
no,
Like,
no,
okay, that's
no.
amazing, Glenn. That is incredible. I absolutely love that. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening like that saying, I need to do that or I want to have that when I get to that point. So,
Well, and the two are related. I mean, yeah. I mean, you know, you do that, so you have that. But you know, you can extend that. I mean, I was reminded of this. I mean, I think handwritten notes is like just a stealth hack that is so easy to do, has impact way beyond the effort once you train yourself to do it. Because 50 years ago, handwritten notes were commonplace. You know, that was etiquette. That's what you did. You know, hey, thanks for having us over. You know, appreciated meeting you the other day or something like that. I write handwritten notes now, and now they're an anomaly. You know, in this world of emails, people think you're nice if you send them an email going, hey, it was great chatting the other day. Really appreciate getting together. Appreciate your time or whatever. They think that's nice. But imagine if in the mail they get an actual note written with your hand, addressed with your hand, you put a stamp on saying, hey, it was really important to me that you took the time the other day to help me through, you know, talk through whatever I was thinking about with my career or my relationships or just it was great to meet you for coffee or whatever it was. But you know, thanks for helping me out with that project or thanks for helping catch my chickens that escaped or whatever it might be. A handwritten note is so powerful. I used to, when I had my engineering company, I had postcards on everyone's table. They had our company brand on them. And they did that so that if someone at the city or someone went the extra mile, did a little something, that they would take one, not later, right then, take a card, write it, and we would mail it to them. And I've been, you know, in city offices, like going behind the counter where the public doesn't go, someone takes you to their desk and you see those cards posted up on the wall. I mean, people hold on to those things. They're so important.
let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. Today's episode is sponsored by Sundays. It's healthy dog food that's easy to store and serve. Most foods are one or the other. Sundays is both. It's fresh dog food made from a short list of human-grade ingredients. Sundays contains 90% meat, 10% superfoods, and 0% synthetic nutrients. My dog, Herc, who's getting old, he's about 13, he is loving Sundays. We have the beef and the chicken, and he is just tearing it up. And it's super easy. I love their resealable bag. A lot of bags are not resealable. This one's super easy to just Velcro right shut, open it up, get ready to go. And it's human grade, and I have tried it. I've tried both the beef and chicken, and I'm not going to lie, it was actually not too bad. I'm like, I would actually eat this camping if I was, you know, just starving after a long day of hiking. It would be a welcome treat. You can also do subscriptions to Sundays to get 20% off and free shipping on every order. But if you want to get a better deal, 40% off your very first order of Sundays, go to Sundays, like the day of the week, sundaysfordogs.com/A-S-P. So usually it's ASP. This is A-S-P for Adventure Sports Podcast. Again, that's sundaysfordogs.com/A-S-P. Thank you. Warmer, sunnier days are calling, and you can fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. You can meet your wellness goals, have fresh, never frozen meals that are smart, protein plus, even keto, diet friendly, dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. And having a newborn in the house, any sort of time-saving meal option is ideal. And every time we have kids, we do a meal prep service. And for our most recent child, we are choosing Factor meals. They have 30 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week to make your day delicious, from sun-up with breakfast to sundowns and snacks and everything in between. There's all sorts of ways to customize it for whatever your dietary needs are. And if you want to try Factor meals, go to factormeals.com/ASP50 and use the code ASP50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. Again, that's code ASP50 at Factor Meals, FACTOR meals.com/ASP50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off next month while your subscription is active. So, one of the stereotypes when you get older, you start really getting into birds, and it is very true for me. My wife and I are like, is that a cardinal? Is that a mockingbird? A blue jay, whatever it is, I'm really getting into birds. And what I'm very excited about is the new Feather Snap, which is a Wi-Fi enabled smart bird feeder that blends the best of technology and nature. It's this unique dual bird feeder that helps attract more species with built-in solar panels and keeps your camera battery going strong to charge the camera that's on there, and then it sends it to your phone and also identifies the birds that are going to your feeder. Me and the kids are absolutely loving it, and we've been really surprised by what's come to our bird feeder. Just for transparency, I got my mom a trail camera last year so she could see all the animals in her backyard, and the first night we saw a bear. A bear. We didn't even know there were bears. I mean, we knew, but we didn't know they were that close. And this takes it to a whole nother level because it's for people who love birds and want to understand what's in their backyard. And I think it's an awesome gift idea. It's like one of those things a lot of people wouldn't get for themselves, but it's such a cool thing to give people that they can really get excited about. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And it's just, I'm always a huge fan of bringing more of nature in and getting people more excited about the things around them. And as someone who can't be in the mountains all the time or out on an adventure, this is almost like bringing a little adventure home with you. If you want to learn more about the Feather Snap camera, go to feathersnapcam.com. That's Feathersnap, S-N-A-P, cam, C-A-M.com, where you can learn more about their cameras and open up your own window to the wild. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. I agree. It's an anomaly. My mom took that strategy growing up, and she still does. If she needs to tell me something important, and it's usually not a criticism, but a critique of some sort, she'll handwrite it. And if it's really important, it'll be in red. And that's awesome. That's a little more like, hey, you need to get your stuff together. But she's anytime she's needed to tell me something because she's not great in face to face, I can out talk her basically. I can just converse, and she'll take her time and write it, and it sticks because I can't argue with that. And I have it to reference, so I don't forget what she said, and it's her way of telling me, instructing me basically. And I haven't implemented it to that level, but hearing you say that is another reminder of just how much it does stand out in today's world.
Yeah, and I don't usually do it for correction, but I can see advantages there because, you have a conversation and we all know someone says something and you hear something, it's not probably the same thing because we all have our little biases in what we hear and things like that. And
you lose it over time. You forget.
And you lose it. That's the thing. Then it's gone. And whatever your erroneous perception was, that's your memory of it now. Whereas with something in writing, you can read it over and go, oh, now that I read that a third time, it's not kind of how I took it the first time. Now that I'm calmed down and reading it, something in writing, you have the chance to go over and kind of absorb it over time instead of trying to catch it in the stream of consciousness that's happening right then.
So that's interesting. Taking less, but you're doing more. I see the doing more in those actions and what you do with your wife with the letters and the cards, and you're getting a lot more done, but you're doing it in a way that's not old fashioned, but it's not done as frequently. Are there other, I've heard your book described as there's lessons that go against the grain of popular thought. And I know that's an example. What are some other examples of that you've learned through this philosophy of taking less and doing more?
One is generosity. And I'm big, I guess on the, on the notes, yeah, that is doing more, but even there, I try and be efficient. So I have, notes on hand for a variety of things so that I'm sure to do it. Another one is generosity. We early on actually, I think I was doing this when I met Francie. So that's a long time ago. I wanted to be intentional in my giving. I think probably most of us want to be generous, and maybe you hear about someone that's going through a rough patch and could use a house payment or car payment or something like that. But we look at our checkbook and it's like, we just got to pay for the kids' braces, or my car just broke, I got to fix that. And so we're not in a position to help out. And so I wanted to make sure, one, that I was in a position to address needs that came across my path. And two, to make sure that I was giving what I wanted to give. In other words, if I give $10 here, $20 here, it's like, I might think I'm being generous, but I might not be achieving my personal goals for generosity. So early on, I started taking a set percentage of all income. When I had a regular paycheck for a while with electronic withdrawal, or electronic deposit, I had it go into two different accounts. And so I set up a different account, what do you call it? A gratitude account, tithing account, peace fund account, whatever, and set aside money on a consistent basis, whatever your personal goal is. Mine started at 5% of after-tax income, and now it's a significant portion of pre-tax income. And then it just builds up in a separate account. And then when a need comes across your path, you don't need to ask, do we have money to address this? You just need to figure out, does this have our name on it? Is this something that we're supposed to address? And if it is, then you can do that. And then also, because all the money's going in a separate account, and from there it goes to some kind of charity or need, once it's in that account, you're achieving your goals of how much you want to give. And sometimes, the goal I have is kind of to zero it out at the end of the year, but not exactly. There's always some in it, but if it's piling up, well, that's kind of defeats the purpose. It's like, okay, this is the amount that I've decided I want to give, but it's just piling up an account. So I need to look harder or need to write bigger checks for the ones that I'm already helping. But then things like, gives you capacity. It's a long story, but I ended up washing dishes part-time at a local bakery.
Can you tell that real quick? I want to know. Because I was a garbage man for a few years, and I tell people that was like the best experience of my life. Now, I was young, but I want to hear this. I think you did this, well into your career. Like, what was this experience?
Yeah, I was retired. So I retired. When I worked, the last job I retired working for the city of Carlsbad, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning. I was at my desk by 5 a.m. And was home usually by 6 p.m. unless there were night meetings, which there were often at least one, maybe two a week. So working long hours. And that was, I'd already gotten rid of the gear company at that point, basically. I worked too much, obviously. Francie will confirm that.
Okay, the monthly things are making sense now. You needed a reminder that you're still here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that guy sometimes walks in the door.
That's 6.
A lot of truth in that. Yeah. So when we retired, I would Mondays I'd walk over to the local bakery here with my Wall Street Journal and my Ember mug, and I'd squander like a couple hours just sipping coffee, eating an ocean roll, and reading my paper. And that was, to me, just such a glorious feeling of not having to be at work since 5 a.m. cranking things out and just squandering the time, enjoying myself. So I kind of got to know the people that work there, showing up every week and seemed a bit like a good bunch. Like they were having a good time. They were taking care of the customers. They're really working hard. So one day I'm leaving and there's a sign on the door. There's actually a picture in my book of something similar. It said, "Hey, attention high schoolers, we're looking for a part-time dishwasher." And I didn't think anything of it. Obviously, high school's a long way away from me and I just retired. I'm not looking for a job. But week after week, that sign's still there. And so finally I asked them, like, "Hey, don't you guys need to take this sign down?" And they said, no, we've got some time before we have this position we need to fill. So we're still looking for the right person. And then I got to thinking about it and I thought, well, maybe I'm the right person. Maybe that's why they haven't found someone yet. Cause like they're waiting for me, maybe this has my name on it. So I asked for an application and they said, "Sure, for who?" Figuring, it's for a nephew or grandson or something like that. I go, "For me." They kind of shrugged their shoulders and, "Well, okay, here's an application, fill it out and turn it in with a copy of your resume," which I found a little strange for a part-time dishwashing position. But anyway, I ended up getting hired. It's been great. I think a lot of people, when they think about retiring, they think about all the things they don't like about work that are going to go away, commute, meetings, difficult people, long hours at your desk or in front of a computer these days, I guess. But they don't think about the things that they do like about work, because those are also going to go away. Being part of a team, shared goals, kind of the adrenaline of a deadline, a group of people that, in my case, at least I saw some of them more than I saw my family, the relationships over a long time. So the dishwashing for that kind of scratched that itch for me.
What are you hoping people get out of this book? If they had to walk away with one new thought or one principle to start, adjusting their life, what are you hoping that's going to be? I mean, the title of the book could be that principle, but if they had to explain it to somebody.
Yeah, I would say creating margin. So one of the things when you backpack with an extremely light pack is you're creating margin. You're creating margin of time and energy. So with a lighter load, you have more energy. You can go further. You also have capacity to help others. If someone sprains an ankle or something, well, you can take stuff from them because your load is so light. So you get the ability to help others. And I think in our lives, when we work to create margin in our, margin of time in not scheduling things down to every last nook and cranny of the day, our energy by, how we eat and how we exercise and how we sleep, creating time for that. So we have the energy to be there for others. And then money, creating, as we talked about before, creating a fund. So we're intentionally creating margin in money to help others. And when you create this margin, you have the ability to notice, kind of engage with people around you. I don't know if I'm the only one that's driven by someone on the side of the road, their car stopped, and I think like, I wonder if I should stop and see if they need help. Maybe I can make a call or change a flat tire. I mean, I'm pretty much an automobile idiot, but maybe I should stop and see if they need help. I don't know. Maybe I can give them a ride if they're late for something. I don't know. But, too often it's like, well, I got out of the house 5 minutes late for my appointment. So I don't really have time to engage, or, I don't have the time, energy, or money to impact others. Oh, I know where we're going with the dishwashing.
You were talking about generosity and we got into that.
Right.
So
Generosity. So having this separate fund, so I got this job at Sparrow Bakery, local bakery here. And then the pandemic came, they did a good job of trying to figure out, hey, who needs to work, who doesn't need to work. So I'm like, well, I don't need to work, so they weren't calling me. But I talked to the owners and said, hey, if there's some way I can help, let me know. And so they got to a point where they said, hey, we're pretty much everyone's on reduced hours, obviously. Everyone's pretty much making their rent and food payments. But, we've got this one situation where this person's, we can cover part of their salary, but, they're supporting, I don't know, a family of 5 or something. We can't cover all of it. If you could pitch in, that would be great. And so because I have the separate account, I can write checks, cover salary. I mean, my only condition was they can't know it's me because I'm just the old dishwasher dude in the back. But I have money to help other people, for when extraordinary circumstances happen.
Undercover boss, and there's no cameras.
Yeah.
It's kind of what that was like. What a wild feeling to know that you're helping, but also scrubbing the pans of all the crumbs and stuck croissants or whatever there are, and all the things you got to do. That's awesome. Man, Glenn, this is fantastic.
And you get to be in people's lives that I wouldn't normally come in contact with. I mean, I'm hanging out with a bunch of 20 somethings in my general life. I'm out hiking with a bunch of old white guys, which is fun, but variety is great. And some of them have wanted to start businesses and wanted some advice, and probably their parents are super smart, but no one wants to take advice from their parents. So, word gets out. It's like, hey, that old guy washing dishes, he's had a couple of businesses and he knows some stuff. And so I've had a couple of them, asked to meet me outside of work and pick my brain on stuff. And it's been fun.
Well, Glenn, I know I'm going to get a copy of the book. I can't wait to read it. I have a copy. I can't wait to get into it more. But I wanted to hear, does the story of you riding in the back of a truck with some lions make the book at all? Or is that a separate thing?
I don't think that's in the book. No.
What was that?
So I worked for an engineering company in Southern California, and actually the owner of that company knew my dad, and my dad's also an engineer. And so I wasn't planning on being an engineer, but anyway, they hired me, and they were big on like big cats at their home on some property. They had big cages with some bobcats and stuff like that. And they were moving to Utah, and there's some cages built there. And I believe the husband was going to surprise the wife with 2 young African lions. And these aren't cubs. I mean, these are, like the size of bigger than a Labrador kind of. I mean, they're pretty big. And so we stopped by someplace in Canyon Country to pick them up on the way to Utah. Supposedly, they needed like a person to kind of keep them calm. So we loaded like a couple boxes of like frozen ground meat in the back of the pickup. It had a cover on it. And then I was back there to keep them calm. But they ignored me like the whole time. I mean, I was trying to keep them calm, but they didn't seem that calm. They were pacing. They were pacing over the boxes of meat, and that started thawing. And then they're pacing like, hamburger basically all over the entire back of the truck. It smelled pretty nasty by the time the sun got to it, but
it just life's going to take you all different directions. And I know you've done some wild things. You never know. Well, I know one thing, if you want to do more, like you've done more, you got to take less. And so, Glenn, I didn't know what this conversation would entail, and it's been surprising, and I've learned so much. And it's also, I'm walking away with some ideas that I didn't have before. So this, to me, was a success. I hope it was a success to you.
Yeah, no, that's what I love about them is everyone's different, and sometimes they go in like a completely different direction that you figure. And it's exciting. Like, I don't think anyone's ever talked about the lion story. So yeah. And, my goal is if someone figures out like, yeah, I could start writing notes and start building my own stories of the power of a handwritten note, or I could start celebrating my anniversary every month, just doesn't have to be anything big. I mean, it's been as little as like a post-it on the mirror when she gets up. I mean, it doesn't have to be big, but just recognizing that, yeah, another month.
Well, sweet. Well, this was great. Great way to kind of complete my day. I'm on the East Coast, so it's getting close to the end of the day. So, all right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, we're heading out river rafting. So,
all right, you're one for. All right, enjoy.
One for.
All right,
take care.
Bye.
Bye.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.